Hey, what's up guys, me Jesus here, back with another video for you guys. So today is going to be a little bit different video. I'm going to just go ahead and go over my Call of Duty Modern Warfare settings. I know you guys are looking forward to seeing some actual gameplay from me, but that will be coming. It's just a fact of producing gameplay and stuff like that, playing games. But I figured I'd go ahead and go over my settings for Modern Warfare, even though I know Vanguard just came out and the beta is live. So I might go ahead and download that, get it, and play some of that for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see. I'm definitely going to be uploading 2042 content. But like I said, I'm just going to go over my Modern Warfare settings for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting off, keyboard and mouse, obvious what I play on. For my mouse sensitivity, I have this at 6.84. I know it's kind of a weird sensitivity. The reason for that is because I use mouse sensitivity calculator to basically get my sensitivity the same throughout all games, which is about 20 inches or 50.8 centimeters per 360. So yeah, for my multiplier, I have that on 1 for all of these. My ADS speed, however, I do have that set to relative, but it is set to 0.9 for the high and low zoom. Reason for that is because according to the calculator, it said 0.9 is actually what makes it the same as this one, and it does help a little bit with aiming. It just slows it down just a little bit, so it does help. And then I obviously have that disabled, invert mouse disabled, mouse acceleration, all that stuff is just disabled, set to 0. Moving on to movement. So this is all, I believe this is all default except for my sprint behavior. I switched that to hold because before I had it set to toggle. I just wasn't used to it because of playing Battlefield so much. So I had to move it to hold, but everything else I believe is set to, tapped or the default setting. I do have automatic airborne mantle disabled. I tried this with enabled. I didn't care for it because I would get into gunfights and I would accidentally mantle something by jumping up that I didn't mean to, so I went ahead and disabled that. Moving down to the actual keybinds, these are all just default. WASD, E is my use key, jump/mantle, so I press space, and then if I'm going to mantle on something, I'll usually just hold it, jump and hold space. My crouch/slide key is control, prone is my alt key, sprint, tag sprint, steady aim, left edit, left shift, gestures and sprays is set to G. I don't have anything set for this. Moving on to the next tab, weapons and equipment. Depleted weapon ammo switch, I have that disabled. I don't like automatically switching my guns. I like to have that full control of it, so I have that set to disabled. Swap around, I have that disabled because I use my later on I'll show you guys for my keybinds. I have 1 and 3 set to my weapon switch basically, and I'll show you how that works. Weapon mount activation, that is set to ADS plus melee because I do use toggle for my aim. I know a lot of people use hold. I prefer toggle just because that's what I've always used. So I just click in, aim down sights, and then if I want to mantle, I just press my melee key. Weapon movement, mount exit is enabled because you want to be able to get out of those mantled situations really quick. You don't want to have to, be stuck there, obviously. So I have that enabled, and then the delay is basically instant. Steady aim behavior, that's set to hold. Change zoom toggle hybrid, I have that set to the change zoom toggle hybrid keybind, which is basically just my scroll wheel. Equipment behavior, hold, so this way you can cook grenades, and then you just let go basically. I just let go of my lethal to release the charged grenade or whatever. I feel like that works a lot better than toggle. Right and left to aim and shoot. Mouse buttons, change zoom toggle hybrid, I have that set to T actually, but you'll see down here the zoom in key is actually set to the scroll wheel, as well as my this is my melee key, so I use my mouse to melee. I've always used it that way. I don't need a mount key, so I have that disabled. Alt fire, I have that set to V. I don't really use this a lot. I like to keep it full auto or semi-auto or whatever it is. By default, I really don't need this. I just put V there because that's what I've always used in like Battlefield and stuff. Lethal, so my lethal is my bottom thumb button. This melee is my top. Tactical equipment is set to 4. Night vision goggles, I actually have the campaign uninstalled on this, so I don't know why I put a keybind there, but I did that one. Field upgrades are set to F. Mission ability, that's set to, what is that, like the colon key? No, that's the colon. That's like a asterisk or something. I don't know. I don't need it because I don't play campaign. Weapon inspect is set to I, even though I don't really inspect my weapons. Before I had it set to T because that's what it was in CSGO, but I just moved it to I. Change my little keys, those are all default. Kill streaks in vehicles, camera center, vehicle camera recenter is enabled. I like this because it doesn't like, it just automatically centers. Like if I'm playing Warzone or something like that, it just automatically centers. I just prefer it that way. Kill streak binds, I have those set to 2 through 7. I know it's kind of weird. I know some people use like different key binds for that. That's just the free key binds that I had really up top, just that I like to utilize. My kill streak / munition willow is set to Z. Armor plate is 5, and then these are all, I think these are all default. I haven't really messed with any of this stuff. And then pretty sure this is all just default. I haven't really done anything except for ping. I have that set to Q because Battlefield, a lot of my stuff is oriented around Battlefield, like tab to open inventory. I don't have anything set for those. Voice chat, I would normally set this to my scroll wheel push down key, but I couldn't do it for whatever reason in this game, so I just set it to C. I feel like that's an easy key to press. And then mute, I just have that set to K, so I can mute teammates or whatever in game, so I'm not hearing them if they're talking or they have open mic. I don't really like to hear their background noises and stuff, so I just have that set to K rather than individually muting people. Menu navigation, I believe this is all just default. Moving on to the general tab, my field of view is set to 106.26, and this is actually a bigger decimal. I don't know what the full decimal number is, but I use mount sensitivity calculator for this one. So typically on like CSGO and Battlefield anyway, the FOV slider, it says 90, but the actual horizontal true field of view is actually 106, and that's why I have this set to that. And then my ADS field of view, I have that set to affected, so that way it's closer to my 106 FOV rather than defaulting into the 80. They both have their pros and cons. The affected, I feel, is a lot easier to control if you have like a high recoil gun, where independent is, it makes the targets bigger because you're obviously more zoomed in, but I just prefer affected. Brightness, I have it set to 55. I think default is 50. Rest of this is just default, except for this skip introduction movie. I have that set to enabled, otherwise it goes through the whole boot up sequence of like the intro when you launch the game. I just feel like it launches faster this way. Tooltips are disabled. Subtitles are enabled. I just like it because then I can read whatever someone's saying or something like that. Colorblind type, this is disabled. I have tried different ones on this. I just prefer disabled though, even though if I were to recommend one, it would be Deuteranopia, because that makes the enemy name tags actually stick out more. So instead of being the default red color, they're like a gold color, but I just have it disabled. Minimaps, change that to square because you get more information that way. For one, like you can see on here, the corners are kind of cut off. Plus, CSGO, or no, Battlefield has like a square mini map. I think CSGO has a circle one, circle one. Rotation is enabled. Compass coordinates, I prefer this to be numeral rather than alphabetical, just because I feel like it's more accurate a little bit, but that's really personal preference. Text to chat behavior, I have the player messages set to default, but the system messages and on screen are disabled. I know that I think by default it's actually the same thing, so I don't know why I have that changed, but anyway, that's what I have. New message sound alerts are disabled. Text to chat is enabled. Profanity filter is enabled, and so is the gore effect, dismember and gore effect, because when I do start making videos again, or when I upload my next video, I don't want to get like strikes or whatever because of the gore and dismemberment and profanity. And then all of these are disabled except for the mute sound widget. I do have that enabled so that I can see when I do have people muted, just in case, you know, I accidentally press the key and I think they're muted when they're really not. Moving on to graphics, so I play on full screen, even though I know a lot of people, they play on full screen borderless. I just prefer full screen because I have one monitor hooked up to my gaming PC, and when I want to like move over to the other PC, I actually don't. I use a program called Input Director, so it actually just switches the mouse over to my second computer. So I don't have to actually tab out of anything. Like if I want to show you guys like a web browser or whatever, I would just do that on the streaming PC rather than on this, or on the other PC rather than this one. So I just still play on full screen. Plus you get the most frame rates this way. My Zowie XL display, my 3080, obviously that's what I have. My refresh rate is 240 hertz monitor, 1080p panel, full resolution. I have tried upping this render resolution, and I haven't upped it like recently in my saved files, because I have them set to read only, but I'll probably enable this to like 150 or something, because it actually recommends in the NVIDIA software that I set this to 175, and I have tried it at like 150 and I lose like no frames, but the game just looks even better that way, so I'll probably up this, but 100 is alright for now. Aspect ratio automatic, VSync disabled. You always want that disabled. You don't want any extra input lag. Screen tearing is really not an issue if you have a high refresh rate monitor, like 240 or 144. I believe the only time you really see screen tearing is if you have like 60 hertz, but even then, it's usually if you have like slightly higher frames. Like if you have double the amount of frames is usually what causes screen tearing. And since I have a 240 hertz panel, and I hit like 300, like I have it maxed for the frame rate at 300, so I don't get any screen tearing at all. But if I were to get like 480 plus frames or 500, I might see some screen tearing, but I see none, so there's no reason to have VSync enabled. And like I said, I have my frame rate in game set to 300, and I honestly stay around 300. I hardly ever dip below that. I have had it disabled unlimited, but I figured I'd have it custom, so then when I'm in menus and stuff like that, I'm not utilizing my GPU to like full blast basically. NVIDIA highlights disabled. Reflex low latency, I do have this disabled. However, because I've messed around with it both ways, and honestly, if you're hitting like a high enough frame rate, it's really not going to do anything for you. This is really for like if I were getting like 100 frames, then it'd probably help me. Then I'd probably enable it. But since I already hit like 300 frames in game, there's no reason for me to have it enabled. It's not going to improve any of the latency that I have, or that I would have if I were, unless I was playing at a lower frame rate. Display gamma, you want this to sRGB or SGB or SGB. Playing on a monitor. TV, you want to go with the BT, but I have that on that because I play on a monitor. Streaming quality is set to low. Text resolution is low. Filter and Anthropopic is low. Particle quality is set to high. I know that I could play with these on like medium or normal or even ultra if I wanted to, but I just don't see a point because I prefer my frame rate to be super high, and these do, as you can see, setting it to high, it almost doubles the amount of VRAM used. So I just like it set to low. Particle quality is set to high though, because when it's on low, like the pixels, as you can see, they're not as defined. They're like a little bit chunkier or blockier, so it's not as easy to see people. So I prefer that on high. Bullet impact and sprays, I have that enabled, even though it doesn't really do anything unless I want to spray a wall, which most of the time I don't even bother doing. And obviously if someone misses you, you don't really want to go back and see where their shots were going. Honestly, it doesn't really matter if you have it disabled or enabled. I just have it set to enabled. Tessellation is disabled. This really doesn't do anything in game. I've tried it both ways. I've never really experienced any improvement of visual quality with tessellation on, so I just leave it off. On-demand texture streaming is disabled. Shadow map resolution is set to low. I could play with it on normal if I wanted to just to look better, but I just have it set to low because I don't really care about shadows. Cast shadows and sunspots are enabled, so that then this like helps with loading times and rendering, so I have that set to enabled. Particle lighting is set to normal. This really doesn't affect anything in the game. I've tried all the settings, and normal is just what I have it set to because I don't see any visual difference on high or anything like that. Ray tracing is disabled. I really don't see any visual improvement when enabling it at 1080p. I mean, you might see some reflections and stuff, but there's like so minimal like puddles and stuff in like the game modes I play, because I play a lot of gunfight and stuff like that, so I don't really see any visual improvements. I mean, yeah, it's cool to look at, but I just have that disabled. Ambient occlusion is disabled. Screen space reflection is disabled. Filmic strength is set to 0. NVIDIA DLSS, obviously that's not going to do anything for me because I'm playing at 1080p, so it's disabled. Anti-aliasing is off. I have played with SMA T2 or Filmic T2. They're both really good settings. It just makes things like look smoother, but I have it set to off because that's usually what I play with. Depth of field, you want all of these disabled, basically. Depth of field, motion blur, you don't want any motion blur. It does look a little bit smoother like when they're enabled, but it's also kind of bad for visibility when you have them enabled, because things are blurry, obviously. Field grain, you want that set to 0. Dynamic resolution disabled. Obviously you don't want any film grain and stuff like that, and then these don't apply to me even though I have that set to 300. So I'll discard changes. Audio settings, so I play on boost high. I have tried studio reference and I actually prefer this, so I'm gonna change that to that actually, because the headphones I use, I don't use regular gaming headphones, I use like studio headphones, so I feel like this actually works better for me in terms of hearing people. So I'll just go ahead and change that right now. Master volume is set to 100, even though all my audio goes through my mixer, so this really doesn't matter when I have this set to. Music volume is disabled. I don't care for the music in game. Dialogue volume is set to 50, and again, that's why I have the subtitles on, because that way I can just read it rather than hear it blasted in my ears. Effects, you want that set to 100, so you hear like footsteps and everything like that at full blast. Juggernaut music is disabled. Hit marker sound effects, I have that on classic. Mono audio is disabled. It helps having this disabled, because what mono audio is basically like my microphone audio. That's called mono audio, where normally this will default to stereo with this disabled, so you hear like the spatial surrounding, like you'll hear them on your left and right, rather than just like having no idea really where they're at. It just helps with your listening to your surroundings, basically. Speakers, default system device, or I have my plugin in the back. I just have it to default. Voice chat is enabled. Speakers, headphone chat device, default. Push to talk, and then I have, like I said, I have C for my push to talk key. I wish I could bind this to my middle mouse, but like it says there, I can't assign it to that, so I'm stuck with C, which kind of sucks. But my voice chat volume and microphone volume are set to 200. I feel like 100 is just a little bit quiet, so I set it up to 200. No effects, get clear audio that way. War tracks are disabled. I don't care for that. I don't play a controller. And then my account settings are all just default. So yeah, those are all my settings, guys. If you guys have any questions on how I have stuff set up, I'll probably do a video after this going over my audio setup for both the PCs, and then as well as a video one, so you guys can kind of get an idea of how I have things set up. And then if you ever get into doing something like this, how you can set up a dual PC setup. But anyway, that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you, like I said, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. If you liked it, leave a like. Feel free to subscribe. As always, I'll see you guys next gameplay. Peace.